The, the Everafter War by Michael Buckley. You are the master? You're the leader of the Scarlet Hand? Sabrina cried. Yes, he replied calmly. She stood aghast, shocked by the betrayal. Disgust, rage, and terror filled her head and heart, sending confusing signals to every part of her body. One moment she wanted to run, to put as much distance between herself and the villain as possible. The next, she wanted to grab him by the collar and shake him until he explained himself and his deception. But you, Daphne started, trembling. But I was your friend, he asked. Is that what you were going to say? I trusted you, Daphne said. We all trusted you, Sabrina spat. He shook his head as if he couldn't believe their foolishness. I'm afraid you've made a terrible mistake. Chapter 1. 6 days earlier. Sabrina Grimm's life was a collection of peculiar, almost unbelievable events. But sitting in her grandmother's living room with 3 massive brown bears had to be the most peculiar of all. The bears in question had arrived with a blonde, curly-haired woman. She was a beauty, with a big smile, dimples in both cheeks, and a dainty nose sprinkled with freckles. Her name was Goldilocks. Yes, the Goldilocks, but all grown up and overflowing with nervous energy. She kept rushing around the living room, rearranging things. She moved lamps and rugs, switched furniture around, and even rehung family portraits on different walls. When she moved something, she would step back and study it, mutter something incomprehensible to herself, and then move it again. Once she finally liked where it landed, she would beam with pride and say, "Just right." Sabrina watched Goldilocks from a love seat across the room. Her little sister Daphne sat next to her, chewing on her palm, a quirky habit she slipped into when she was very excited or happy. At their feet sat the Grimm family's 200-pound Great Dane Elvis. He turned his big head back and forth from Sabrina and Daphne to the bears and Goldilocks. Every few seconds he let out a soft, confused whine. Sabrina understood how he felt. Just another day in Ferryport Landing, Elvis, she muttered, then turned to her sister. How long are we going to wait? Daphne shrugged. Granny said she'd come downstairs to get us as soon as she could. Maybe we should offer them something to eat to be polite. Like what? A trout? Goldilocks grunted and huffed, and the bears responded with a series of short grunts. They seemed to be talking with one another, but Sabrina couldn't understand any of it. When they finished up their odd chat, Goldilocks told Sabrina that the biggest of the bears would love a cup of Earl Grey tea very hot. The second biggest would prefer iced tea. The littlest would like some chocolate milk if it wasn't too much trouble. Sabrina was bewildered. Growing up in New York City, she had witnessed people speaking to animals on more than one occasion. Once, on the subway, she'd overheard a heated discussion between a man and a one-eyed mutt about Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo. But in Ferryport Landing, animals talked back. We'll be right back, Daphne promised, pulling her sister into the kitchen with Elvis in tow. There, they found a little girl in red pajamas huddled in a corner. Her sad, shy face was framed with amber curls that tumbled across her shoulders. Sabrina immediately wished she had stayed in the living room with the bears. Only yesterday, Red Riding Hood had been a deranged maniac. Now that she was supposedly cured, Granny had invited her to live with them. Sabrina wondered if she'd ever get used to seeing Red's face. Are they gone yet? Red whispered. No, Daphne said, but they're friends, Red. You don't have to hide. Red didn't look convinced. She tried to squeeze deeper into the corner. Daphne went to work preparing the drinks, while Sabrina spied on the guests through the crack in the kitchen door. Goldilocks continued to rush around the living room, reorganizing everything. The bear sat listlessly on the couch. If it wasn't so strange, it might have been boring. Goldilocks is giving me a headache, Sabrina admitted. Why can't she sit still? Don't spy, Daphne scolded. It's rude. Aren't you curious about her? Dad was in love with her before he met Mom. Sabrina studied the woman. Goldilocks was very pretty, and she seemed nice enough, but she was also exhausting. She couldn't relax. Plus, she was no Veronica Grimm. Sabrina's mom was a knockout. Love is weird, Daphne said with a hint of authority. Sabrina laughed. And you're an expert? You're only... She stopped herself when she spotted her sister's scowl. Sabrina was already treading on thin ice with Daphne. Yeah, you're right. Love is weird. Red, won't you please join us? Daphne asked kindly when the drinks were ready. Red shook her head vigorously, staring down the floor. The sisters carried the tray of drinks into the living room. This is a bad idea, Goldilocks fretted. She sat on the ottoman only to jump up again, rush across the room, and move a vase an inch to the left. I shouldn't have come here. Your father's not going to be happy. He'll understand. We've tried everything we can think of to wake them up. You're our last hope, Sabrina said, nearly panicked that the woman might change her mind. Goldilocks went to work rearranging the books in the family's massive bookshelves. I tried to respect his wishes. I moved to New York City and lived there for a long time. I had a nice little apartment in the East End, in the East Village. Even when I heard he and Veronica moved to Manhattan, I never went to see him. I avoided the Fairy Kingdom in Central Park in case he ever went there. It was my way of showing what I was sorry for what happened to his dad. And now here I am, breaking my promise to stay out of his life. When he opens his eyes and sees me standing over him, he is going to be furious. And your mother, she's going to think I'm a harlot. What's harlot mean? Daphne asked. A harlot is... Sabrina started. I asked Goldilocks, not you, Daphne snapped. Sabrina's face flushed at the sharp tone. It stung that Daphne wanted as little to do with her as possible. A harlot is a woman with a bad reputation. A harlot is a woman who kisses another woman's husband, Goldilocks explained, and turned to Mama Bear. What do you think I should do? Mama Bear shrugged. A lot of help you are, Goldilocks scolded, then turned back to Daphne. What is keeping your grandmother? Same old Goldie, a voice sang from across the room. Sabrina turned to find Uncle Jake wearing his trench coat with hundreds of extra pockets sewn into it and a huge smile. Just as impatient as I remember. You should see it in a drive-through restaurant, girls. Fast food isn't fast enough for her. Goldilocks frowned and moved a paperweight from the coffee table to the bureau. Jake Grimm, don't tease me. I'm a nervous wreck. Then let's get this show on the road, he said, gesturing toward the stair. We're all ready. Goldilocks bit her lower lip and followed Jake, the bears and Sabrina and Daphne close behind. Unfortunately, the girls found themselves downwind of the bear's special brand of funk. Granny Rhoda was waiting at the top of the stairs. She was a stout woman with wrinkles lining her face. She wore a bright white dress and a matching hat with a sunflower applique in its center. She grinned and embraced Goldilocks as if she were one of her own children. "It's good to see you, Goldie," she said in her light German accent. Granny had grown up in Berlin and moved to America when she married the girl's late grandfather Basil. Goldilocks smiled and nearly cried at the same time. "It's been a long time, Mrs. Grimm." "Who is Mrs. Grimm? Call me Rhoda, honey," she said, and turned to Sabrina. "Where's our friend Red?" "Being weird in the kitchen." "Red," the old woman called out, and a few moments later the little girl appeared at the bottom of the steps. "Are you coming?" the old woman asked. Red shook her head. "This is your family. I don't belong." Granny gestured for her to join them. "Come along, Liebling." Reluctantly, Red climbed the stairs, and Granny led everyone into a spare bedroom furnished with a mirror and a queen-size bed. Lying comfortably on the mattress were Sabrina and Daphne's parents, Henry and Veronica Grimm. Both were deeply asleep, enchanted by a spell that would not allow them to wake up. Granny Rhoda took Henry's hand. Goldie looked like she was about to faint. She leaned against the bedroom wall for support. "Rhoda, Granny Rhoda waved her off. "There's nothing to apologize for. What happened to Basil was not your fault. It wasn't anyone's fault." Sabrina watched Uncle Jake's gaze drift to the floor. She wondered if he would ever forgive himself for his part in Basil's death. "I appreciate your kindness, but I'm not sure Henry feels the same way," Goldie said. "How long have they been like this?" "They were kidnapped 2 years ago," Daphne explained. "We only got them back a few months ago. So far as we know, they've been like this the whole time." "Did you try Prince Charming?" Goldilocks said. "He has a knack for waking up people with a kiss. The women he wakes up tend to fall in love with him too," Granny said. "It might be coincidence, but we'd rather not chance it. We don't want William Charming for a stepfather," Sabrina grumbled. Uncle Jake crossed the room to Papa Bear and patted his furry arm affectionately. "Good to see you again, old man. Your boy's getting big." "You know the bears?" Goldilocks asked. Uncle Jake nodded. "Oh yes. Let's just say Papa and Baby helped me retrieve a phantom scroll from a Romanian constable a few years back." "Retrieve or steal, Jacob?" Goldilocks asked, raising her eyebrows. Mama Bear growled. Sabrina didn't need to speak bear to hear her disapproval. "Tomato, tomato," Uncle replied with a wink. "Goldie, we understand you and the bears have given up a lot in returning to Fairyport Landing. You're trapped here again, and we are very grateful for that sacrifice." Papa Bear gave a long bark. "He says it was time to reunite his family," Goldilocks translated. Mama Bear was the only one in the town when the berry went up. They agreed it was best for Baby to live a life of freedom, but they've been apart too long. He says it's better to be trapped together.
Buck did his best to avoid the flying rocks, zigging and zagging.
That seems to be the end of this video. I'll send more later. Goodbye.